Hey, it's Pastor Mark back again, and we get to be looking at the story of God. We've entitled it Echo. Actually, the author of this entitled Echo is putting the story of God together in different stories. We're looking at Genesis 25 to 33 today, and this is an opportunity for us to dig in. This is designed for youth and young adults, designed for our youth and the kind of the time when the Bible Sunday studies was happening, but everyone is welcome. Everyone needs to hear and go through and understand the story of God. I've done this actually with adults, I've done it with youth and lots of different groups, and this is just an opportunity to pause. At this time and in different weeks, we may have another video and other things that we'll put in, but this is the story of God that we want you to understand. So listen up and hang on tight, because this one gets a little interesting. The story of Jacob and Esau from Genesis 25. When Isaac was 40 years old, he married Rebekah. Isaac prayed hard for his wife because she could not have a child. God answered his prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant with twins. But the two children, they fought with each other inside the womb. She prayed and she asked God, "Why is this happening to me?" God told her, "Your sons will become two rival nations. One nation will be stronger than the other, and the older son will serve the younger son." When the first son was born, he was very red and hairy. He looked like he was already wearing clothing. They called him Esau, which sounds like the word for hair. The other twin was born, and his hand was grabbing Esau's heel. They named him Jacob, which means grabbing the heel, but it can also mean deceiver. As the boys grew up, Esau became an expert hunter who loved the outdoors. His brother Jacob, he liked to stay indoors and live quietly in the tents. Isaac loved Esau and all the wild game he would bring home. But Rebekah, she favored Jacob. Well, once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came home exhausted from hunting and said to Jacob, "I'm starving. Give me some of that red stew that you've made." Jacob replied, "All right, but trade me your inheritance for it." "Hey, I'm dying of starvation," said Esau. "What good is my inheritance if I'm going to starve?" Jacob demanded, "Swear to me right now that you will give me your inheritance." So Esau, he gave an oath, trading away his inheritance and his rights as the firstborn son. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some stew, and Esau quickly ate and drank and went on his way, not thinking about the fact that he had just given up his inheritance. Well, years later, when Isaac was old and almost blind, he called for Esau and he said, "I'm an old man now. I'm going to die soon. Hunt some wild game for me. Prepare it just like the way I like it. Before I die, I will pass on the blessing that belongs to you, my firstborn son." Well, Rebekah, she overheard this conversation. And so when Esau left to go hunting, she said to Jacob, "Do exactly as I tell you. Go, bring back 2 of the finest goats from our flocks, and I'll prepare your father's favorite dish from them. Take the food to your father. He will eat it and give you the blessing instead of Esau." Jacob replied, "Mother, he won't be fooled that easily. Esau is hairy and my skin is smooth. What if he touches me? He'll see that I'm trying to trick him, and then he'll curse me instead of blessing me. Just do as I say," Rebekah demanded. So Jacob brought back 2 of their best goats. Rebekah made Isaac's favorite meal. She put on Esau's best clothes on Jacob, and she made him a pair of long, hairy gloves from the skin of the goats. Jacob took the meal to his father, pretending he was Esau. "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's." Isaac said this to himself. "Are you really my son, Esau?" Isaac asked. "Yes, of course," Jacob answered. "If you are, come and kiss your father," Isaac said. So Jacob went and kissed Isaac. And when he did this, Isaac smelled his clothes and was finally convinced this must be Esau. So Isaac gave his blessing to Jacob, saying, "May God pass on to you the blessing he promised to Abraham. Your family will grow large and become a great nation, and other nations will become your servants. God will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you." As soon as Isaac had blessed Jacob, Esau returned from his hunting trip. When he learned that Isaac had given his blessing to his brother, he wept out loud, "Father, Father, bless me too." But Isaac said, "Your brother was here and tricked me. He has carried away your blessing." Esau hated Jacob and said to himself, "After my father is dead, I will kill Jacob." Rebekah found out that Jacob was in danger and sent him far away to live with his uncle. On his journey, God appeared to Jacob, saying, "I am the God of your grandfather and your father. I am giving you and your descendants this land. Your family will grow large and be a blessing to the entire earth. I will be with you and protect you wherever you go, giving you everything I have promised." And God blessed Jacob with a great wealth and 12 sons. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, which means struggler with God. The Hebrews would later be called the people of Israel, named after Jacob. Many years later, Esau forgave his brother Jacob, and then Jacob and his growing family moved back to the promised land of Canaan. The story of Jacob and Esau. Wow, that was a nail biter. I feel like a lot of times when we hear these stories and we say, "We get it, Jacob and Esau, what's going on?" I think that we very often forget to look a little bit deeper. The imagery is so strong. Jacob grabbing the heel of Esau coming out of the womb. This picture of deceit, or these recurring themes that we see of Isaac's wife not being able to give birth, and so on. Here's some questions for us to consider as we look at this story. What do we learn about all these characters? Rebekah, Jacob, Esau, Israel, or we should say Isaac. So often we can become familiar with this and not think about what's really going on. So what do we learn about them? What did God tell Rebekah about the children in her womb? Now, how might that have affected her actions? A really good question there. Why do you think Esau gave up his inheritance so easily? That's a hard question for now. Why do you think Jacob desired his father's blessing? Why would God pass on his blessing to Jacob when he deceived his father? What blessing is God passing on through Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob? These stories tie together. Please don't forget that. And please take time to see this in these stories. And of course, lastly, I mention this every time. What does this story teach us about God? Yeah. Don't do the yeah-yeahs. What are we learning about him? Does God know all things? Is he the source of all grace? I mean, I think some of these things are coming up really clearly in this story about how things are working. I know I just said lastly, but just remember, all these stories are linked together. And don't forget what happens in the previous stories and how it does tie together. We put these stories on as a reverberation, an echo of the story, the grand narrative of the story of God. We say it's designed for youth and young adults, but everyone is welcome. Take time, please take time this week. Join us for youth on a Friday night as we gather. Join us as your small group gathers. Join us for outreach and mission as we are learning to walk and learning how to follow Jesus. Bye for next time. Pastor Mark out.